A question asked courageously, answered honestly, and lived authentically can change your whole life. For me, that question was, how can I use what I have, what I love, and what I know to bless the lives of others? The School for Good Living and this podcast are one answer to that question. Hi, I'm Brian Miller. I know that the world can work for everyone, but that it won't until it works for you. I've created this to help you make the difference you were born to make. It's a series of conversations with thought leaders who are moving humanity forward. And in each episode, I explore their lives and the work they do. I also ask them to break down how they've gotten their books written, published, and read. This podcast is all about exploring the magic and mystery, and sometimes the misery, of the creative process. So if you have a mission, a message, and the motivation to share it, this podcast is for you. Welcome to the School for Good Living. Hello, my friends. Today, my guest is James Wallman. James is author of Stuffocation, Why We've Had Enough of Stuff and Need Experience More Than Ever, which he published in 2013. And in this conversation, we explore ideas in his new book, Time and How to Spend It, The 7 Rules for Richer, Happier Days, which he published this year in 2019. I think this is a very timely book because, as James asserts, we have more free time than ever, and he quantifies that. There's some scientific research, quite a lot of it in this book, actually. But he shows how even though we have more free time than ever before, we feel greater time scarcity than ever before. And he talks about why that is and how important it is to use our time, especially our free time, well, to get the most out of life without feeling overwhelmed. James is a futurist, a journalist, an author, a keynote speaker, and an activist. He's a fellow of the Royal Society of Arts and a member of the Cloud Appreciation Society. I thought that was crap, but that's real. It's a real thing, the Cloud Appreciation Society. James lives in England. He has a master's in journalism from the University of the Arts in London, and a master's in classics from the University of Oxford. That sounds pretty cool. He has written for more than 50 publications worldwide, from the New York Times, New York Magazine, to the Times of London, the Telegraph, the Guardian, and he comments on trends that are happening now and what are predicted and the impact they're going to have for publications like GQ, the Financial Times, clients in the corporate world as well, like Absolute, BMW, Burberry, Nike, and on and on and on. Really, really enjoyed reading this book, Time and How to Spend It. I think if you do too, you will enjoy it as well. It's very, very thought-provoking. We talk about our tendency to escape into, retreat into, get distracted by our smartphones and all the technology that's available to us. And as I already told you, there's a lot of science and research in this book. James shares one remarkable fact, which is how many of us even check our smartphones while we're in an intimate act in the bedroom. That actually really surprised me. Almost nothing surprises me anymore, so maybe it shouldn't. I hope you enjoy this conversation with James and that you learn something to make you a better person, to enjoy your life, to make a contribution. Enjoy this conversation with James Wallman. James, welcome to the School for Good Living.
Brian, thank you very much. It's a real pleasure to have been asked onto your podcast, School for Good Living.
Yeah, it's a privilege to have you here. So, James, tell me, please, what's life about?
Well, I've just come from seeing my kids in the musical Oliver. So it was food, glorious food, and you've got to pick a pocket or two, and pop, that's out. Do you know the song?
I am not familiar.
Oh, wow, it's an amazing movie. Maybe it was a British movie with a guy, Oliver Reed. Do you remember Oliver Reed?
No.
Oh, what a fantastic opportunity for you. He was the guy in Gladiator who played the kind of the guy in North Africa.
Okay.
I know this is really spinning in a direction you were not expecting now.
Well, I know Gladiator. You got me there. I know that one.
and you know, life is like, what's life about? You know, seeing my children in that play was, well, I mean, it was a bit boring because it's school play, isn't it? It's kind of dull. But it was also seeing my children. That was awesome fun. And actually, my dad came over and we had lunch in my garden. First of all, and then we walked over and we saw the kids in the play, and that was really fun. And you know, and then I did some work today that was really enjoyable for a design firm called IDEO, you know, global, but you know, based originally out of Palo Alto, I think. and I've had a really good day. And now I'm talking to you. So life is a combination of, family and friends and connections and doing things that are hard because I'm probably a bit dumb. But doing things that are hard and enjoyable and meaningful and being outside and, looking at the trees. Yeah. Life is short, but it's kind of beautiful, isn't it? It's fun.
Well, and that's I love that you use this to open one of the chapters in your book about life is long if we know how to use it, said Seneca. Right? And so speaking of your book, this book, Time and How to Spend It, I love this book. I read this book, most of it, while sitting in a tent in the desert in New Mexico.
Whoa.
And it was glorious. And I read in there that you came to Utah, where I'm based, to ride horses and have an experience with a cowboy, which I want to ask. But before we get to that, I love your statement that knowing how to spend time is arguably the most important skill in life, right? So I might have just stolen your thunder in response to the question, why did you write this book? But that's where I want to go for a moment. Who did you write this book for, and what did you want it to do for them?
You didn't steal my thunder, but I love the idea of you reading my book in a tent in New Mexico. Thank you. That's a gift in itself. And that idea that knowing how to spend time is the most important thing there is simply because, you think about all the resources that we have, the money, the real estate, the connections that we have. You think about, our connection being through Chris, through this entrepreneur school that I went to at Cambridge. You think about when you're pulling together a business or you're trying to achieve a project, you pull together your resources, and those are all really important to you. But you can always go out and get more of those resources. So whatever those resources are, your connections, your money, whatever, you get more of that stuff, right? That comes, it goes, whatever. You can get more. And you can eke your time out a bit more. If you run more, that's why we all go jogging. If you get, high impact and get your heart pumping, and you can make life last a bit longer, but it is finite. There's a lovely idea of the time bank, that every day you can go to the bank and you get your 24 hours. But at the end of that day, it's gone. It's not, you can't you can get an overdraft with the bank. You don't get an overdraft with your time in life. There will be one day where you will go to the time bank and there won't be any more time left for you. And so knowing how to use that time strikes me as just, so it's really important. So I wrote the book. It came from another book I'd written called Stuffocation. And Stuffocation was the two things. It was one, I'm a trend forecaster. It comes from a belief that we're moving from materialism to experientialism. So instead of looking for happiness, identity, and status and meaning in material goods, which was the dominant value system of the 20th century, or the later 20th century, we're moving to a time of experientialism, expecting to find happiness, identity, and status in experiences. And but it was not just that. It was also because when I was researching the book, I came across the data that showed that if you want to be happy, you should spend less on stuff and more on experiences. Now, everybody knows this nowadays, Brian. This is common currency. But when I was first working on this and the book first came out, nobody knew this stuff. And I'd like to think I've done my bit in helping spread that message. I mean, it's not just me, other people have done it too, but I've helped spread that message. But once you know that instead of spending, and it's more about money, spending money on stuff, you should spend money on experiences, the natural next question is, okay, so what kind of experiences should I spend it on, right? And the thing is, once you move to spending on experiences, you're not just spending money, you're spending time. Because if anyone's ever given you, when you get an experience gift from somebody for Christmas or birthday, and it's just not something you want to do, that's awful, right? If you get a material gift, someone gives you, I don't know, a scarf or, a tennis racket or something that's a material gift that you don't really want, they've wasted their money. But if somebody gives you an experience gift and you do it, you've wasted your time.
Yeah. And they've wasted their money.
They wasted their money too. Well, or maybe not, because they're wasting your time. So maybe that's pleasurable for them, because maybe they're people. I don't know. Maybe they're good people. I don't know.
Yeah.
So just like with, we all know nowadays that there are some foods that are good for us. There's kale, there's broccoli, there's blueberries, there's acai, I don't know how you say it, but there's acai berries. But chocolate, we know, that good chocolate, well-made chocolate is good for us.
You can say that however you want, and because you're British, I'll just assume you actually know how to say it, and I'm the one who's wrong.
Okay, acai berries. How's that?
But yeah, there's definitely these superfoods, right?
Yeah, exactly. But there's also just like basically good foods, vegetables, look at Michael Pollan's, right? Eat more plants. It's simple, right? Eat. There are certain foods that are good for us. There's also, we all know there are foods that are not good for us. So, a supersize, think about the movie Super Size Me, a great big soda with way too much sugar in it, or just eating too much sugar. We know that's not good for us, right? And it's the same with experiences. Some experiences are essentially high processed, corn syrup rich, just stuff that, yeah, sure, you'll carry on surviving, but you'll end up with bad skin. You'll end up with more stress. Maybe even it'll lower your libido, right? Some foods are bad for you. Some experiences are bad for us. Some are really good for us.
Yeah, the maigrettes. That was what I took away from Super Size Me. Both the McSweats and the maigrettes.
The maigrettes.
Morgan Spurlock, when he conducted that experiment. So yes, this totally resonates with me. Just like food, you can, why did I put that in my body? Why did I do that to myself? That experiences have a similar sort of empty calorie quality. Some.
Yeah, right? No, that's really interesting. Because you've hit on something that's really one of the magical things about experiences, and why they're the material goods that making us happy, is even experiences that go wrong. It's hard to. What we tend to regret what we haven't done rather than what we have done. That said, you spend 3 hours on Facebook, you come home drunk, or you come home late at night, and you check your email, and you check your Facebook, and you check your Twitter, and you check your Instagram, and you find yourself an hour and a half later feeling, that. Maybe you don't get it, but maybe it's just me. But I think there are a lot of other people that do that. You end up with that kind of like sunken feeling because you haven't had all the kind of likes that you wanted, which is, there's a chemical thing that makes us kind of need it. This stuff is designed to kind of hook us. But to answer your question, because sorry, I get roundabout, the book is for anyone that thinks, how should I spend my time? Anyone who's you said to me before, this is for conscious achievers, right? And if you want to get a bit more out of your time, if you want to get 3% more happiness out of your weekends or your holidays or your Thursday evening or your Tuesday morning or life in general, then knowing that just as knowing the right kind of foods to eat will make you healthier and enable you to get on and really live a good life, knowing the right kind of experiences to spend your time on will mean that when you come to the time that your time bank has gone and you go to cash it in and it says, sorry, your time has come, you can at least sit there and think, wow, it was a ride, that was worth it. I did something. That was okay. And you can feel that way on a Sunday evening before you start work again, or you can feel that at the end of a vacation, or let's say, you take a sabbatical or whatever. At the beginning, you can get the most out of your time. You know that during it, you're not going to get FOMO, this fear of missing out thing, because that, of course, there are other things. Of course, you've got a friend who's currently skiing in Argentina. Of course, you've got a friend who's, climbing in Chamonix. Of course, you've got a friend who's having lunch with some A-lister in Cannes, or,
And their teeth are all perfect. It's like when their kids they're all clean. It's like... Well, their house is so organized.
Because you're American. But the thing is, I've got British friends, and obviously Brits that live in England as opposed to Brits who live in the US, and they have bad teeth, so they make me feel good. They're okay.
Yeah, I definitely had that experience of spending time online or on a video game or whatever, and then afterwards it's like our family owns movie theaters here in Utah, and there was a time when I worked at the theater and I could see every film at no cost. And prior to that, if I saw a film I didn't like, sometimes I'd want my money back. But when I could see them free and I didn't pay, I just wanted my time back. So that totally resonates. And I suspect everybody listening has had that experience. And I love this point you make in your book that I think is actually really profound if we stop to appreciate it. That free time, research shows this and our experience, I think, validates this, is that free time is actually harder to enjoy than work.
Yeah, that's it's funny saying it, and if I repeat it back to you, we're going to sound like a couple of guys on a podcast. But that comes from me, as you know, having looked at this, comes from Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, and this is robust data. This is hundreds of thousands of pieces of data that just shows that, and the incredible learning I think from that is that, and I am stealing from Mihai Csikszentmihalyi here, and I think I hope that comes out clearly in the book. That's all evidence based. Everything that's in the book, apart from one little theory about transformation, is based on robust data conducted by people at Brigham Young University, Julia Holt-Lundstad, for example, and Daniel Kahneman's work over at Princeton, etc. One of the funny things that Mihai Csikszentmihalyi says is that we have this fantasy of the good life, and the fantasy of the good life is, let's say that you own some, movie theaters, and you can go and sit and you put your feet up, or, it's when you're going to be on holiday and you're sitting on a sun lounger with a margarita in one hand and you're just sat there. And of course, what people nowadays do, and they kind of really make this worse, is when they sit on a sun lounger, they've got their smartphone with them. Yeah. So the poor lambs are there checking Facebook and telling their friends what a great time they're having. And then what they're doing is taking selfies to make sure everyone knows what a great time they're having.
Yeah.
And actually that kills the whole point of it. And what his work shows is that doing something that's really hard and challenging and kind of pushing it, something that's, pushes our own personal envelope is a much better way to achieve happiness, and you're much more likely to be happy by doing something that's hard and challenging, that puts you into this, into flow in the present, as Eckhart Tolle would say, or in the zone, as an athlete would say. And for me, that's one of the ideas from the book that's just kind of really liberating. It makes you think, okay, so when I take my vacation, I'm not just going to sit there by the pool. I'm not just going to sit on the beach. I'll do a little bit of that because we all need to rest. We need to manage our energy. But I'm going to do that once I've earned it. I'm going to do that when I'm, I've gone out there and got hold of life and grabbed it by its horns and done something. I go bouldering, indoor climbing. I live in London, so we don't have mountains here. Sometimes I get to go, but generally there's a place near me I go, climb bouldering. And the magic is I can be 3 feet up off the floor and I'm scared because I'm going to fall, and I'm trying to figure out how to get up. So my mind is involved, my body's involved. It's kind of stretching my muscles. I'm fully focused on the task in hand. It's a bit like surfing or snowboarding or whatever, but something that's hard.
No, that makes sense to me in this aspect of challenge and the challenge matching our skill, and just, like Ms. Mihai's research shows about inducing the flow state and really enjoying the gift that is, and how we can consciously create that. I think that's part of it. As I looked at this and reflected on what you wrote, I tended to think that there's a part of it as well that's about structure, that in some way we crave structure. And the research that you cite about we have more free time than ever before. That Americans, on average, have 5 hours and 14 minutes of free time. British have 5 hours and 49 minutes of free time. But if you asked anybody, it wouldn't feel that way. Like this paradox of having more free time available to us, but feeling less fulfilled, feeling more stress than ever before, is like a total mind twist.
Yeah.
And so that's where then to come back to this thing about challenge, filling our time, and it's easier to enjoy work than free time. Part of it, as I've thought, is structure, and how challenging it can be, how much we crave structure, but how challenging it can be to create it for ourselves. I don't know if that's a part of your experience, or if you came across that kind of thing in the research as well.
It's really interesting. Since the book's come out, I've had quite a lot of pretty interesting conversations with people, and I was with it's called the Nudge Unit. It was known as the Nudge Unit. They're called the Behavioral Insights Team, and it was inspired by Richard Thaler's work. He's one of the advisors, but it was set up post his work and advises governments around the world now. As I was seeing those guys the other day, and they asked some smart questions, but no one's put that point to me. And I think it's really interesting, Brian. And what it makes me think of is one of the things, if you think about sport, is there's a really specific structure, right? You can't go outside the lines. This is the goal. You got to get the, we're into football over here, which you would call soccer. Even though, of course, football, the whole thing about football. Anyway, let's not get into that. We'll let that go. But and then anyone listening, we've just edited 15 minutes of conversation about football versus soccer.
With a little bit of rugby in there, discussion for cricket. Yeah.
And then we could get into equality and whether the women's football teams soccer teams can get paid the same as the men's one, which makes sense. Because your women have just won the World Cup. But anyway,
for the second time. Right?
Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the second time in a row or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing. It's great football too. But if you put them up against the men, and this is no disrespect to the women, but the game is not at the same standard at the moment. So it would make no sense in this country for it to be that. And that's not disrespecting. It's just observing something that is the case. It's catching up fast. And some of the goals were exceptional. Anyway, let's get. Sorry, I'm a Brit, aren't I? I love.
So the game has lines, it has rules,
structure.
Right?
And I've been thinking about this actually, about the importance of ritual in our lives. I think ritual is something that provides structure. And actually, I'm toying with this for the next book, actually, Brian. And then think about, okay, so let's take the opposite of a game, a sports game, is checking Instagram or Facebook, right? Because there's that endless, is it John Zeratsky and Jake Knapp in their book, whose name I can't think of right now, in their book about time and managing your time, they call them infinity pools. And I think one of the reasons why, let me grab it because it's interesting. I don't know if you know these guys. Do you know this book?
I do. I have not. I think I did see that title in your book, but I was not familiar with it prior.
If you'd want it, I can connect you to these guys if you want to talk to them. I mean,
I would. If you'd be willing to introduce me, I'd be very grateful. Yeah,
I'd be really happy. Great, really. I mean, very smart, nice people. And I think their term infinity pools is really lovely. Because
and I know this is what Simon Sinek's talking about now, and there was another book written in the 70s about infinite versus finite games and the nuances between them. I don't know if you've seen that, but Sinek has transitioned from Start With Why to Leaders Eat Last to now infinite games.
Interesting. I didn't know.
So there's kind of this current, I think, that's flowing as well.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But it's your point exactly about structure, actually, Brian. The magic of something that's, I mean, it's a bit like, the finite nature of human existence, the fact that we're not amortal and we are mortal, because the problem with immortality, or immortality, whichever, it's slightly different, but the problem with either of those is that there's no point in getting out of bed. Because you can do it tomorrow. What's the hurry? Someone says to you, hey, let's make it up. Let's say you and I were going to meet in Uganda, okay, and we're going to go see, we're going up to Kidepo in the north at the South Sudanese border, which is pretty wonderful up there. But let's say we were going to go do that, okay, and we're like, well, there's no rush, Finite is good because it gives the structure. You think about the structure of a person's life. You're born, you learn stuff, you do your thing, then you get a bit older, you have children. That kind of that structure, which is also a game, actually, from a certain perspective.
Yeah, I think so, and it's something that I've been exploring and in my coaching with people, especially because I think almost universally we feel this sense of time scarcity.
Yeah,
and we often experience it as stress, as anxiety, as frustration or disappointment, a sense. And so what I've been inviting some of my coaching clients to consider, not to say that it's true, but to consider the possibility that the purpose of time is to maximize our enjoyment of life. Because ultimately, if we really take responsibility for our lives, it truly responsible for what's on our calendar, where we go, what we do, where we often feel like we're at the effect. Oh, I have to. I've got to pay. And we use these excuses for not really being at the center of our lives. And if you say instead, time as a framework, yes, it can feel very daunting. It can feel very kind of stultifying. There's a $5 word. But if you're the one that's going, look, I'm putting this on my calendar. And I am going to do this, and by default, I'm not going to do everything else. But that's another level of ownership, I think, and all the things that it brings up, which are legitimate. But to me, the interesting question is, are we willing to take that level of responsibility for our lives, no matter what the consequences might be? Who might not approve? What else we might miss out on? Like all this kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, but I didn't mean to go on my own theory. I'm just enjoying this exploration so much.
I like what you said. You think about those times in life where you've got a deadline for something and you need to pull together your resources and you have to get really organized and you're kind of like, right, I'm going to work this hard. I'm going to do this in the morning, but that means I'm going to have to get up earlier. Okay, fine, some sport or exercise or something then. But I need to see my children, otherwise I'm going to burn out, because that's a stupid idea, right? I need to manage this. It needs to be ongoing. So I need to stop at a certain time because I want to spend some time with my children or, my partner or my friends. And you kind of, when you organize your life like that and you have structure, and you need some space for, serendipity and spontaneity to happen too, I think it's a really good way to exist. And I think one of the problems, it's going to sound silly, but because we don't know when we're going to die, okay, we therefore have this kind of like, especially when you're young, you have this kind of, it'll go on forever. There's no hurry. That's why you smoke pot when you're a kid, because you think you've got a lot of time and you're like, sorry, I'm making it. But, look, you can, once you get to a certain age, there's no point in smoking pot because it just robs you of energy. You want to get on and do something with your time, right? Yeah. Actually, pot's legal for you guys, isn't it, nowadays? So it's
in many places here in the US. Yeah.
It's not over here. But we'll catch up, I hope. But having a structure that says that there's a definite end to this is you kind of take hold of it, because it's that thing that you've got to get hold of, haven't you? And I think one of the problems in our society is that, and this is why I wanted to write the book, is that if you think about time as being this incredibly precious resource that is the finite thing it's going to come to an end, and you remember that it is going to be over soon, you think to yourself, hold on, it's going to be over soon. I better get a hold of this. I'm going to make this work. Because if you're married and you don't know how long it's going to go on for, and your wife's annoying you or your husband's annoying you, that's kind of annoying. But if you think, okay, we've only got 15 years anyway, well, you may as well enjoy it and get something from it, because this is your only go around. I mean, however your religion works, this is your only go around in this format, whatever next or whatever, So I like that. And control, if you look at Amartya Sen's work, the economist at Cambridge, he looks at control, social participation and capabilities as being the three keys for human flourishing. I think it's very connected with status, actually. But you think about that idea of control being really good for people. And when, people, when they lose control of their lives and have less control of their lives, they kind of get upset. Whereas when you even when things are going wrong, when things are going really wrong, but you write down how things are going wrong, and you start to, especially if you're a coach and you coach with people, when people start to get hold of it, however bad it is, at least you're kind of playing a game that you're kind of in some kind of control of.
Absolutely. And this is one thing I wanted to ask you about as well, because you brought something to my awareness that I thought was really lovely. The way you succinctly articulated it and the power that it has for me, and I think for many people. So this idea of things going wrong and the narratives we live. And this idea that there's really only two narratives that every life takes. And this is, of course, a broad generalization. But this idea of the one that's either a contamination story or a redemption story. And the story of how you got in the hole you're in or how you got out of the hole you were in. Will you talk a little bit about that? Because I'd never heard it said that way. And I just thought that was really potentially transformational for people to get. How are you telling the story of the life you're living and then the effect or the quality it has on every day for you?
I'm really happy that resonated for you. My wife thinks that first chapter should be a book on its own. And I give talks, and I've started to skip everything in the book and really focus on that for some people, particularly for leadership. Actually, I'm going to Nairobi in a couple of months to give some talks based around that hero's journey and how we think about ourselves. But what I think is really interesting that you picked up on is that difference between the contamination story where things go wrong. And, we've all got those friends who can perceive things in that negative way. When you have a conversation with a friend and they're telling you about something that happened, and you find yourself saying, hey, but it turned out okay, didn't it? Or, oh, but you learned something. And there's that friend of yours who probably tends to drink. I think a particular friend of mine who drinks too much. Who there's those friends who just go, oh, no, who won't accept your positive spin on what happened. Yeah. Now that's just to explain, make it clear for the listeners, this is the contamination version where things start in a certain way and they get worse. And there's those people that tell those kind of negative stories and you find yourself always trying to pick them up. And there's the other people who tell a story of saying, well, you know what, our investor pulled out and things were, we did not know what we were going to do, but you know what? We bootstrapped it. We made it work. Or, it's the people who, the tent fell over or the wind caved in and everything went wrong and the boat fell over, but they made it through. Those people who turn whatever situation to, wow, it all went wrong, but we learned something. They're super positive. They could be a bit annoying too. But what's really interesting, I thought, and this is from psychologists, and they call it narrative psychology, where they examine the stories that people tell about their lives. For me, what was really interesting about that is that the people who tell the contamination story, as you would imagine, when things go wrong, they tend to be much less happy. They don't feel like they're contributing. Of course, the importance of contribution to happiness has been shown many times. And that story of the redemption story of the things getting better are much happier. So once you know that, okay, this is partly my take on it, is like, okay, so life is a choice. Lots of things are choices in life. So which of those stories do I want to be my story? Because that's a choice as well. And then you can put them together and you put them into this hero's journey where things go wrong. This is from Kurt Vonnegut with the man in Hull, and we come out the other side. What's kind of interesting for me is to see if that's the kind of story that you should tell to be happier. Well, get hold of your stories and tell stories in that way. And if you can try and perceive things, even when they go badly, and go, okay, that really isn't working out. That was not good. I did the wrong thing, or the wrong thing happened to me. You think, okay, so what's the learning I need to get from this? And if you can take that positive, we're coming back to control again and structure. If you can take the positive from any situation, you're actually getting a hold of it. And then the magic of that in terms of, happiness, there's lots of data that shows that you will be happy if you follow that. But then you'll start to see yourself on this hero's journey, this kind of person who has struggles and comes out of it. And I'm going to be straight with you. I think that as an American, and if most of the people that you work with are Americans, you guys have that hardwired we all, it's the story of Jesus too, right? And, it's the story of, lots of great stories. It's for all of us. But the story of America with the kind of, turned up, Thanksgiving, yeah? Here all these people from Europe turned up and, they ran out of food. But, along come these people with the turkey. And then they make it through. That is a classic story of things got better. Yeah. And, most cultures have these stories, but if you kind of think in that kind of like, things went wrong, things get better, it gives you that kind of more resilient response to when things go wrong. And what happens in all of our lives is things go wrong. That is a given. And so if things are going to go wrong and you're already thinking, okay, how can we put that into a positive? You'll come out of it the other way, much more positive.
Yeah. And to me, that was the thing that was so remarkable to see it graphed out. Like you literally put these, as these illustrations in the book of saying you can tell the same story in either format.
Yeah.
Right. It doesn't depend on how it turned out. It just depends on what you choose to focus on and how you choose to talk about it. And I think if people, while this can sound like a concept right now, my hope is that people will start to see how they can reframe maybe their entire life or stories within their life, things that have happened to them, and be happier as a result.
Can I jump in, Brian? If you want, I can, provide, that hero's journey, as I've drawn it out, is a simplified version, because some of it can get very complicated about the mother and the father and all this kind of like, you have to kill the father, and it's some of these stories, they're mythical stories as well. But one of the things I find that hero's journey, one of the most, possibly the most inspiring parts of the book, because of what it provides for any person as we go through life and we come across a certain point, we might get stuck. We might find our boss annoying. We might find our partner annoying. We might find our lack of money annoying. There's all these things. But the magic of that hero's journey is you can use it to think, okay, where am I around the loop at the moment? Where are things? Am I refusing the call to adventure? Have I heard the call that says, James, you should go write a book, or you should learn to climb, or you should take the next step? I failed at a startup a couple of years ago, and I'm not licking my wounds. I'm just trying to figure it out so I'd have a better go next time around. Okay, so am I just saying no because I'm a bit scared? In which case, I should, this is coming back to what you were saying about structure and control and should I get hold of my life and go for it and take on the adventure? Is that where I am? Or if you're on possibly my favorite part of that is the road of trials. The road of trials with that tests and the allies and the enemies. And what I love about the road of trials is it's an essential part of the hero's journey. And it's therefore the essential part of your story and my story and everybody's story. And the great thing is once you realize that in order to be a hero of any sort, you need to solve problems. So if you think about Independence Day, if you remember the movie Independence Day, right?
Sure.
You've got to kill the big alien to save the humans. You think about Luke Skywalker, okay? If Luke Skywalker had gone to Darth Vader and said, hey, Darth, I've got a great idea. You come to the good side. We will rule the galaxy, but we're going to do it in a really nice way and make everybody happy. And Darth Vader had said, smart thinking, Luke. Let's do it. It wouldn't have been a movie. It wouldn't have been a movie at all, right? Luke had to take on the first baddie and then the bigger baddie. And he had to, eventually go through that whole... And he also, to do that, he needed, tests along the way to discover who he was. He needed allies because he needed Han Solo and Chewie and the whole... I hope you don't mind me going to Star Wars on this. But
Obi-Wan, yeah.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Yeah.
And he needed the mentor, yeah. So the thing is, think about the Rancor. He had to beat the Rancor when he was in the big slimy slug dude. What was his name?
Jabba.
Jabba the Hutt, thank you, yeah. Shame on me for not remembering. Okay, I watched it maybe a month ago with my daughter. Anyway, so the thing is, in order for him to be the big hero, he had to beat the big baddie and solve the big problems. And through that, we got to understand who he was. And he got to learn and grow and become. In exactly the way, Brian, for you and for me and for anybody listening, if we want to have the big victory, and if we want to perceive ourselves as somebody worth being, as someone who's achieved something, we've got to take the shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
we've got to have the enemy as important. So the way I found that really inspiring was, it meant I could reframe things that had happened in the past for me, but in the present, and as I go through my life now I've come across that idea. I know that when something gets in my way, when somebody, when somebody really annoys me, when someone says no, I pitch things to people. I've got to make money to pay the mortgage and, take the family on holiday and stuff. And, when someone says no, or somebody stops me or gets in my way and they really annoy me, I don't need to be annoyed with them anymore. I need to thank them because that's my opportunity to kind of go, well, you said I can learn something from this. You are part of my essential journey to become a bigger, better, stronger man, to grow into who I have the potential to become. And that's just, I don't know how you find that, but I find that so liberating. It's like, wow, when bad stuff happens, that's on my side. That's helping me grow. It's just so kind of like, it means I can stop being a really moany Brit.
No, I love that too. And that idea of looking at the map of the hero's journey and asking, where am I on this, as a useful way of figuring out what do I need to do or stop doing. And even to the point, I've been using a line from your book with people that I'm speaking with. I love about how, yes, we are all snowflakes. We are all unique. We all have our own version of the hero's journey, but in some way we're all snow. I thought that was such a great way. And so I do think this can be very useful, if people are willing to look at it.
Can I just tell you, I got that from a life coach.
Oh, you did? It comes full circle. There's the circle again.
Really. Yeah. And I got to mention her name because she can be a bit ornery sometimes. So she just said it to me. She's also teaches actors, including, although she'll never quite say it in public, can't think of his name now. He was in Doctor Who. He's a very famous guy. Anyway, whatever, can't think of his name. I'm not very good with actors. But her name is Eva Kolajewska. And she said it to me. So I've stolen it from Eva, or I borrowed it. But it's
right
great.
On. Well, and now you've acknowledged. So you're even. You're even.
I'm playing nicely. It's appropriate to play nicely, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I want to turn our discussion for a moment before we go to the enlightening lightning round. The last thing that I want to ask you about that you talk about in this book is how common it is for people to pick up their smartphone while they're having sex. What? I'm going.
Right.
Yeah, I think we all do. We're like, do I do that? Have I done that? Right? That kind of thing. But will you, I mean, okay, I just want to see, I want to look at this real quick because you cite some other facts before you quite drop that one. But I was like, that really freaking happens, doesn't it?
Well, that research was conducted at, I think it was Northwestern, I can't remember, but it was definitely a university in the US.
Yeah, I think it was Virginia. And then it published in The Economist.
Yeah.
You cite that. And you talk about, most people pick up their phone within 15 minutes of waking up in the morning. Yeah. Average person picks up their phone 150 times a day.
Yeah.
Many people do 300 times a day, which is about once every 3 minutes you're awake. And that there's a number of people, 1 in 10, research shows, pick up their phone, like check their phone while they're having sex, right? When you discovered that, like what did you think? I mean, what's going on?
Well, my first thought was, I got to try this. So I kind of,
like any true researcher.
Exactly. So there I was with Mrs. Wallman, and I got to have a couple of drinks. No. Those stats, by the way, come from Adam Alter, who's at NYU at the Stern School of Business, and in his book Irresistible, fantastic guy. I'd be really happy to connect you to him too. He's a real he's a great researcher. And Irresistible looks at, the lure of our phones. Look, these devices, and this is from Natasha Dow-Schull, who I think is at NYU now, but she was at MIT. She wrote a fantastic book called The Design of Addiction.
Addiction of Design. Machine Gambling in Las Vegas by, and what's her name again?
Natasha Dow-Schull.
Okay. Natasha
Again, I
Dow-Schull.
can connect you with her. She's a very smart woman. She researched how they made these machine gambling, these gambling machines. And they are the most addictive thing on the planet. They've been called like that lazy term, but the crack cocaine of gambling, etc. Uh-huh. And basically, exactly the same tricks that are used in those is what's in our mobile phones. So it's you heard of something called classical conditioning, from Pavlov's dogs.
Sure.
Yeah,
sure.
So everybody knows that one. And this one is called something called operant conditioning, which is, how scientists sometimes have fancy words for things that kind of make sense. So if you have a dog and your dog comes to you, you give it, something to eat, right? So that it knows that it gets a reward. And, if you think, we work like that in relationships too. So, if your partner is nice to you, you buy flowers or, you know what I mean? You smile. And that's what our devices do. And the thing is, this research shows that basically operant conditioning works on pigeons and rats and humans. So the way our devices work is you check Facebook, and this is the thing, and it's called intermittent variable rewards. This is like one of the key things about operant conditioning. Okay, so if every time you do something, you get, let's think about the rats. If every time the rat presses a lever, it gets something to eat, yeah, it goes there and it gets something to eat, fine. But if it doesn't know what it's going to get each time it presses the lever, and it doesn't, and sometimes you don't have to press the lever, so something happens, it goes back again and again and again. Not knowing is really exciting, which is one of the reasons why watching sport, watching a soccer match, for example, watching England against the USA in that semi-final is so exciting, because you don't know how many points are going to be scored. I mean, or any game, the Super Bowl, whatever. You don't know how many points are going to get scored. You don't know if your team's going to win or lose. It's one of the reasons why soccer is generally such a good game, because it's low-scoring game. So even the small teams beat the big teams, which is, brilliant. And so when you check Facebook or email or Instagram or whatever, you don't know if you're going to have a message from your mum saying, hey, come home this weekend, I really want to see you, or a message from that hot girl at work that you really shouldn't be talking to, but you can't help it, or some kind of spam, or your boss or someone that you don't really like contacting you, or nothing at all.
Or some major calamity, again, which obviously and thankfully they're very rare, but like a 9/11, did that happen in the world today? Right? You never know what you're going to get.
I mean, the thing is about news is also incredibly entertaining.
Yeah.
I know that's a really negative thing, saying it's probably inappropriate, but at the same time, this is why Donald Trump is so great. Sorry. I love Donald Trump. Everyone thinks I'm pretty crazy for that, but he's such a crazy show. And sorry if you're a drum fan. I don't mean this, either positive or negative. He's such a crazy show.
Yeah.
In the it's just he's just worth watching. His future historians will just wish they'd been alive when Donald Trump was in power, because he's just so much fun. He's so crazy. Anyway, enough about him. So what was that? Okay, this intermittent variable rewards. It's exactly as you said. You know if it's going to be the news or it's good news or bad news or whatever. And so the thing is, we keep checking and we keep checking. And you check just before you go to bed, just in case something interesting has come in. You check when you wake up in the morning. And just to throw in, and this thing about how we check our phones first thing in the morning. And actually, anybody listening, if you take out nothing from this and you've listened this far and you take out one thing, because most people charge their phones in their bedrooms. Don't charge your phone in the bedroom. You will sleep better. And there's some research that suggests that you'll have more sex.
Just by charging your phone outside the bedroom.
Because it's not there. And the thing is, if you've got yours in there and your partner's got theirs in there, you've got that device that your parents, your boss, your co-workers, your children, everybody can contact you. So you're bringing maybe echoes, but they can contact you.
Yeah.
I have my notifications turned off. My phone is always on silent so that I choose when I, want to talk to people. Kind of manage that time. Our time is precious. Our time is short. I need to get work done so that when it comes to, I'm a real believer in Saturday and Sunday should not be work days. This kind of blurring of work and leisure, I think, is one of the problems that we have today. The fact, work used to be a place we went to and you would work I love work. I love working hard. It's fun. It's hard. It's meaningful, but put it down so that you can spend real quality time with you. I often go out without my telephone, which kind of freaks people out. So I phoned you. Why don't you answer me? I'm like, well, we said we'd meet. And what I did was that place we said we were going to meet, I went there. Look, here I am.
Yeah. Like people text you, I'm here. You're like, yeah, I know. I couldn't see you.
I hate the text, I'm here. Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah. Is then when they phone you and say, where are you? Like, use your eyes.
Yeah. Serious. Yeah. No, I love that. And by the way, I just want to call out to people listening, this idea as well that again is a paradox for many of us, or maybe counterintuitive, is that we think working harder, working more is the answer. And I often quote this Reid Hoffman thing about hard work is never enough and more work is never the real answer. Right? So this idea that we're seeing in James's life here, where you've published 2 books. Really good books that people enjoy, are making a difference. They're on bestseller lists. You're being invited to speak around the world. You're consulting, for the world's biggest companies, and you've written for more than 50 major publications. And that while every life is its own life, and we all get to find our own styles and preferences, that here you're saying, look, I'm taking weekends off, more often than not, and you're still achieving at a very high level. Where I think a lot of people listening are giving up sleep. Or they're letting their phone interrupt them, their boss call them anytime, where you don't have to live that way even if you want to achieve at a high level. They're not mutually exclusive.
Yeah, I just want to throw in there that when I hear that list, I'm like, wow, that guy sounds good. But I guess, lots of us have the imposter syndrome. Maybe that's a British thing too much. But, that kind of like, wow. And I mean, it's true that those things you said about me are, and what I've achieved. But I think success is a choice. And I don't know if you read A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle. I think it confused the hell out of me when I first read it. I was like, what is this guy saying? But there's stuff that he says in there about success is nothing other than a enjoyable present moment. And that stuff about being, actually it might have been put cleverer than that. But, the present moment being the only thing that exists, it's really important. I personally also think we should think about the remembering self, the anticipating self. I think there's lots to be said for this stuff. But, and that quote you said about that working hard, that thing is if what you do is really work hard, and in the US you have a very work hard culture. It comes from, I think it's the Protestant thing from the 19th century in particular. If you work and work and work and work, yeah, you might enjoy work, but what are you missing out on? Think about your time. There are, in Utah, think about, the trails you can go walking on or running on or skiing on, or, hanging out with people that you love. I mean, that's the Daniel Kahneman quote in the book, right? That happiness is, it's only a slight exaggeration to say that happiness is spending time with people you love and who love you. And that's like, okay, so I should do more of that. And it's, once you know that, you're like, okay, but I should enjoy my work. I should find stuff that's hard. I should do stuff that's hard in my free time. I should spend time with people. And then that's one of the reasons why the checklist in the book, I don't know if this stories thing, was that you can't do all of it all the time. I'll be honest with you. I'm going on vacation in the summer and we're going to be on a beach with my children, and I won't be living a full power hero's journey of kind of like doing something, incredibly hard. I will be on the beach with my children playing on the blow up pink flamingo that we have and the lilo, and messing around with my kids. But I'll be ticking the box about hanging out and making really important relationships. There are times when I want to be inside and watch a movie. I'm a big fan of the US Office. I've just got to the point where, Michael, the boss, has left. I'm on season 9, I think now. And I love the US Office so much. It's my like guilty pleasure. I don't watch TV. I find TV really annoying. I mean, there's loads of data that says you watch too much TV, you will erode your happiness. Sure as, getting sandpaper and scrubbing it down on something. But I'll give myself a window to watch a bit of US Office, Anyway, so, we can't take all the, it's like gratitude. I remember talking to Tom Gilovich at Cornell University, who was one of the drivers, in fact, if not the guy who's really done the research, one of the people that's driven the fact that we now know that material goods are not as good as experience of making us happy. And when I was talking to Tom about my book, he liked the checklist because we talked about this idea of gratitude. We all know that gratitude makes us feel happier, but sometimes, you know what? Who feels grateful? I don't know. I wish I was that perfect human being who woke up every day and was like, look at the climbing frame in the garden. Aren't we lucky to have that? And isn't this nice that I've got this, this terraced house in London, which is nice. But sometimes I'm like, I wish I had a bigger house.
Sure.
I wish I wasn't working so hard. I wish the money was flowing a bit easier.
Yeah. So you're human.
And if you don't feel grateful, okay, so what other box can you tick to get something out of your time?
No, that resonates for sure. Well, let me turn our discussion now to. I just want to get this in here too, because you pointed this. You just call attention to things and articulate them in a way that I find very valuable. And this one that you touched on earlier, but didn't present this way of, in the history of humanity, we've reimagined, reinterpreted success, right? From survival, for millions of years, perhaps. Survival was success. Yeah. Then materialism for 150 years or so. And then we realized, well, that wasn't not fulfilling. Okay, so now we're in this era of happiness is success. So we've taken these steps, and I just thought that was actually a really brilliant kind of call out. I wanted to get that in the recording. So thank you for pointing that out.
Thank you. Can I just thank you? I want to flag up that it's not that the message isn't anti-money. I get caught in this conversation with my wife sometimes because you know what, money it's an enabler. It means that you can go to. I went to a great Mexican place in Salt Lake City when I was there last time, and we had to pay for dinner, and the waiter was this amazing guy with all these tattoos. He was really fun, but we wouldn't have had that fun experience with my buddies from Utah if we hadn't been able to afford dinner. These things are important.
Totally.
It's that trifecta of happiness, resilience, and success. Those three things feel to me so, together. You need to be resilient because things will go wrong. You need happiness, and success is both a financial thing, but I think it kind of wraps up this idea. Anyway, but I just wanted to. But thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Lucky us that success is more than just survival. Happiness is a luxury good, right?
Absolutely. And I happen to think in Maslow, as you know, later revised his pyramid from self-actualization being at the top to transcendence. And, with Joseph Pine in his book, The Experience Economy, where he talks about commodities, goods, services, and then transformation. Yeah. And this idea, and I think we're moving there, that even we'll find happiness and even experiences are not inherently fulfilling any more than goods or materialism was. But what we're really seeking is a sense of oneness, right? Like a communion with the divine or with all things, I think.
Wow, it's really...
but maybe that's easier for me to explore because I'm fortunate to be born in a family where I don't have to work for a living. And I get to, or have to, depending on how you frame it, think about these kinds of existential questions. While it's a bit of a mind twist, while there's nearly 2 billion people on the planet without access to clean water or sanitation, and here I am going, why am I here?
Yeah.
Right?
Look, I think we've all got our challenge. We've got our challenges, because you think about that stuff from Me High Cheek Set Me High, free time being, you've got to have a challenge. One of the problems with being born in a situation where you're wealthy is, well, you've got to find it. You've got to get off. You've got to go find that challenge. So it doesn't matter what it is, because if you don't have that, you're going to get stuck, right? Interesting you mentioned Joe Pine and his work, because I'm in contact with Joe fairly regularly, actually. I just got to take a job at for the British government advising on the experience economy.
Wow.
Which I try and bring that into every conversation. I'm so proud. I'm so happy about it. It's really cool. I'm a sector specialist, experience economy, which is really cool. And, Joe was, the first person to really identify the experience economy, obviously with those articles in the book. And that idea that we'll move from experiences to transformations, to me, is really interesting. I think, you see the T of stories is about transformation, but not every experience is going to be transformative, but it still be fun. Take, I went to Six Flags years ago. I don't know if you still have Six Flags still going?
I think they're still around, yeah.
I went to a Six Flags in LA when my brother moved there quite a few years ago. And roller coasters are not transformative, but they are fun.
Yeah.
They're fun. So I think there's a place for non-transformative things.
Sure.
But there is also, if you think about that hero's journey, you think about the more meaningful experiences. Well, transformation's at the heart of those, I'm really interested what you said about that whole oneness. Definitely about connecting with others and connecting with other things feels more meaningful.
Whether we're aware of it or not, I think that's it. What we're all ultimately searching for is, as some have called, the numinous.
Yeah, I've heard that. Have you read this new Michael Pollan book?
How to Change Your Mind? Yeah, amazing.
Super interesting, and it's inspired me to, play a little in that area recently, and I find that kind of very interesting.
Yeah, very much.
I don't know if we're going to go there.
Well, in the interest, I would love to, and maybe we'll do a part 2. Maybe with your next book, or maybe we could actually go back and do Stuffocation or something. But so maybe. But let me turn our conversation now to the enlightening lightning round.
Okay,
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay.
So you want to be
term
quick with these answers, correct?
Well, you don't need to be quick, but I'm going to say the question, and for the most part, I'll then be quiet. Like the other term you use in the book, I love that. The coup de foudre. You probably said that more Spanish than French, but okay. Please complete the following sentence with something other than a box of chocolates. Life is like a...
Who can beat Forrest Gump? Life is like a... But I use that phrase. I use it in stuff I write. Okay, sorry, you want an answer?
That's fine.
Like an opportunity to do something that's fun.
Okay.
And meaningful. Sorry, I think it is like a box of chocolates. I think it's about choice. It's about, you might have the strawberry flavor one and be like, oh God, that's awful. But that's part of the journey to find the chocolates that you like. I quote that genuinely alongside Ferris Bueller. The wisdom of Ferris Bueller?
Oh, it's rife with wisdom. What's the Ferris Bueller? She'll keep calling. What's the one you say?
Bueller. No, but the life moves pretty fast. You don't stop and look around once in a while. You could miss it.
Yeah.
Those Hollywood writers are good. I mean, that's why The Gladiator is such an incredible movie, and that, what we do in life echoes in eternity, where that guy, David Franzoni, took Marcus Aurelius's words and made them better. There are some good writers in the world, and I'll happily steal their good stuff.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, next question. What's something at which you wish you were better?
Climbing.
Next question.
Answering questions like this.
You're doing great. You're doing great. If you were required every day for the rest of your life to wear a T-shirt with a slogan on it, or a phrase, or a saying, or a quote, or a quip, what would the shirt say?
I'm thinking of the Ferris Bueller thing, but on the day my granddad died, I'm trying to think of what he wrote to me in the note. And the thing is, I think I've thrown the note away now because of Stuffocation. I mean, you know, my granddad existed. It does not. I don't know, what did he say? He said, "Here's a £5." It was a £5. He said, "Go and buy yourself something nice." That was it. Memories live longer than dreams.
Wow. Okay. Next question. What book, other than one of your own, have you gifted or recommended most often?
I think it's called The Cloud Spotter's Guide.
I saw you're part of the Cloud Appreciation Society.
Exactly,
or
Cloud
whatever.
Appreciation Society. Yeah, Gavin.
That's awesome.
Finney's. And the thing about this cloud guide is that you give the gift of looking up, and you give the gift of kind of like, oh, look at that. Oh, that's that. Okay, fine. And clouds, they're always changing, especially in the UK. But, you know, when you cross the Atlantic, I don't know if you've ever seen those Virga clouds, the ones that are like falling away. I seem to see them when I cross the Atlantic. And they're beautiful. And let's bring this back to the book here slightly. Or, and this is, I say bring it back. So bring it back to what psychologists have discovered makes us happy. Or, which is actually coming back to your idea of, you know, transcendence and getting outside of ourselves and realizing there's something more than just us, is really good for our happiness and our well-being. So if if you encourage people to look at clouds, because the thing is, you know, we all sit on planes sometimes, we all sit on our own sometimes, and if you look up, you'll be happy.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Will you please tell me the name of the book again?
Yeah, let me find the copy.
The Cloud Spotter's Guide. Yeah, The Cloud Spotter's Guide.
Yeah, The Cloud Spotter's Guide. I think let me just double
by
check.
Gavin Pretor Pinney.
Yeah, hold on.
Originally turned down by 28 publishers, Gavin Pretor Pinney's The Cloud Spotter's Guide has gone on to be an international bestseller and has been translated into 20 languages. In addition to serving as a guide to cloud types and how they form, this book explores how the clouds above our heads have played the backdrop to the entirety of human existence.
Because it's boring.
But that's the book, right?
No, it's not boring. It's that if you get the Cloud Collector's Handbook, you don't have to read all that stuff about clouds. You can just look at clouds.
The Cloud Collector's Handbook. I love it. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I just haven't read the other one. I'm sure it's lovely, but I don't want to read that much about clouds.
No, well, thank you.
I like looking up at the sky.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Okay, so the next question. So you travel a ton, even more than most of my guests. What's one travel hack, meaning something you do or something you take with you when you travel to make your travel less painful or more enjoyable?
Okay. Probably a book. That made me sound, I mean, I like to take, I have different elements of reading, but I find that, especially if I'm working, if I've got a novel to read, I prefer fiction to really relax. Although, have you read David Simon's Homicide?
No.
It's incredible. I'm kind of rereading it at the moment. I think probably I take an eye mask. You know, I travel first class. You probably do it a lot, Brian. I traveled first class once in my life, okay? And they gave me this really nice eye mask. And what is it with hotel rooms? There's always, some kind, even when all the lights are off, there will be like a flashing light on the TV or flashing light on one of those stupid alarm clocks they have in there or something. Yeah. And I'm like, I like dark. Sorry, is that helpful?
No, that's helpful. My wife and I. Yeah, by the way, so my wife and I actually started traveling with a roll of electrical tape, just the black electrical tape, to put over the television light, and we just,
Wow.
So in addition to an eye mask solves all that, but that's one thing that's been helpful. So that's fun. Okay, thanks for that. Okay, what's one thing you've started or stopped doing in order to live or age well?
The stuff in the book. Actually, I've made a point. That Harvard study from 1939 makes the point. Basically the flip side to Julia Holt-Lundstad at BYU's research that says loneliness is a killer. The people that live the longest, the clearest indicators are people with relationships.
Yeah.
Good relationships mean you'll live longer, happier, healthier life. And it has made me reconnect with some friends. And when I'm too busy, because I've got 2 young children, my wife is studying to be an actress at the moment. So, there's only one person bringing in money for the 4 of us. I don't have a lot of time. Yes. I put a lot of value in spending time with my children. So I don't have a lot of spare time to spend with friends. And there was a long period where I was like, I don't really have friends anymore. I don't have the time for it. And I don't have nearly as many friends as I used to have. But it gives me an excuse, because I know it's going to be good for my well-being, to say, yeah, okay, I will go see that friend. And I really like one-on-one time. I really, I'm lucky enough to know some people who are really good, funny, silly, idiot people. And there is, who put up with me. So I've made a point since I wrote the book of making a bigger point of seeing people that matter to me. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
That's great. Okay.
And we don't have TV, and I'm going to throw in this in as well. We don't have normal TV. Our TV is not connected to normal TV. It's, it's IP. So we do have Netflix, we do have Amazon. And I just watched the US Office. I mentioned that, right? So when someone says to me, you've got to see this program, I just wait a minute and go, thanks. No, I won't be watching that program. Because the problem is, if I enjoy it, House of Cards, I watched 5 minutes. I was blown away. And I had to just watch it like a maniac. So I don't even let these things get near to me.
Wow. That's great. Okay. Just a few more questions in the lightning round, and then I know we're at time. If we finish these four more questions and then 1 or 2 questions about the creative process, are you okay with that?
You're fine. Don't worry. I'm enjoying your questions are great, and I'm really enjoying connecting with you. And I'm fine. Yeah.
Okay. So next question: what's one thing you wish every American knew?
This story's checklist. How to spend your time. People now know that experience is better than material goods. But once you know this stuff in the story's checklist, especially that hero's journey, makes you happier. Makes you get more out of the short time you have on the planet. It'd be awesome. Yeah, I mean, I'm working on getting more people to know about it, and Brian, you're helping me do that. So thanks.
Yeah, my pleasure. Okay, what's the most important relationship advice you've ever heard and successfully applied?
I'm still trying to figure out how marriage works. And I mean that in we've gone through some tough times, but we're really together, and she's lovely, my wife. But she's also annoying, and so am I. And trying to figure out how marriage works. I can't quite figure out the ones that work and the ones that don't work. I keep trying to, because I look at people that I know that have split up or stayed together, and there doesn't seem to be. I wish there was a really easy formula. And I think the hero's journey, and it feels like I'm just kind of coming back to, flog the ideas in my book. But the magic of the hero's journey means that when my wife and I have gone through some tough times, and me giving up my job, which was, reasonably well paid, to write my book, destroyed us financially, because Stuffocation was self-published at first, right? Nobody would take the book, so I self-published, and then it got some coverage, places like Fast Company and Financial Times, and then it got picked up by Penguin, and lucky me, it took off. But it's been a journey. But shifting my perspective from somebody stopping me doing from what I want to do to understanding the road of trials, and that means I need tests and allies and enemies for me to grow as a person and develop.
Yeah.
It's so liberating. Even recently, something happened, and I was pretty annoyed, and I was like, why are they doing that? And as soon as you do that, you lose control.
Yeah.
But as soon as you say, they're doing that, what can I learn here?
Yeah.
I mean, it took me a couple of days of being really annoyed to get round to my head. If only I was
but you did. Yeah. But you got there.
It makes life easier. So when something gets made, like when my perception of my wife has been that she is in my way and she is trying to stop me and she's my enemy, when I realize that's part of my hero's journey, boom, life feels a bit better.
That's beautiful. Just by the way, may I offer you one thing about the relationship thing?
Yeah.
You might have seen his work already. is very well known. But John Gottman, are you familiar with this guy's work?
I know the name.
7 Principles for Making Marriage Work. He's got, anyway, I think you would like his work. It might be useful in your professional life, but also your personal life. Like the guy's thinking and research has totally changed the quality of my marriage.
Whoa.
Is profound.
I'm going to write it down. Thanks.
Yeah, so John Gottman, it's 2 T's, Gottman. And one of his books is The 7 Principles for Making Marriage Work. And I think it, in a way, it just breaks it down and simplifies it to the point that you're like, no, it can't be that easy. But I think it actually is.
No, it's
not that it's easy. It's never easy.
I'm saying, yes, darling.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, thanks for letting me interject that there.
No, thanks.
Okay, last question of the enlightening lightning round. Aside from compound interest, what's the most important or useful thing you've ever learned about money, or something you do or don't do with it?
Oh, bloody compound interest. I wish I could operate it. But I do get it. I get the idea. What's the smartest thing I've learned about money? Have some.
Yeah.
And that sounds really silly, but, I never cared about money. And the problem was that, I grew up and we had enough. We didn't have lots always, but at one point my dad his company fell apart and he had nothing. He went to what we call the dole office, but he was unemployment benefit. He would drive there in this Porsche he had at the time, but he was like, he had worked for like 40, 45 years and always paid his, taxes. So, so he was like, well, I'm out of work. I can take my unemployment benefit. I'm going to do this. And he was, I made that. He was on his knees. We were, as a family, we were on our knees for a period, but I was kept safe from that, I think. But I left university and didn't care about money. And I had this friend, I saw a friend recently, and she said, oh, James, it's so good to see you. She was a bit drunk. She said, she introduced me and said, this is James. He doesn't care about money. I love you, James. And I said, no, that was till I wanted to have children.
Wow.
Once, I turned to my wife quite a few years ago and said to her, let's have kids. And she said, he literally laughed at me and said, you don't earn any money. That's not going to work. And I love being a dad. I love my children. And the thing is, if you want to have children, you need some money.
Yeah.
And if I'd known that a bit earlier in my journey, I might have made some different decisions that had led to having some more money. Yeah.
Children require money.
Well, it's a life requirement. It's too easy. I don't care about money. Well, happy days for you. If you don't care about money, if you've got enough, you don't need to worry about it. But you do need to have that. And we live in a lucky time of having a lifestyle. As you said, it's not just staying alive. We want a bit more than that.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so this isn't quite at the end. I want to put this here and not try to just squeeze it in the end. If people want to learn more from you or connect with you, what would you have them do?
This is going to sound horrible. I'm just trying to sell my book. But that Time and How to Spend It, and I think in the US, because it's not been published there yet, you're better off to buy it on Kindle. But I've been told it's like, sitting across from me, hearing from me. The other thing, I guess listening to this, and you can decide if I've talked too much and you don't want to hear from me ever again, that would be also fine. You go to the website, timeandhowtospendit.com, which I don't update that often. Follow me on Twitter, and I'll post stuff about stuff that interests me. I don't know. What is that?
Instagram? You have an Instagram account too?
I do. I don't post much on that, but I'm just James Wallman there and on Twitter. To be frank, I'd come off all that stuff, but I just feel I ought to do it because of the book. Because the problem with Twitter is you have to try and sound interesting. And the problem with Instagram is you've got to go, wow, look, I can take great pictures. And aren't I having an interesting life? And that's kind of annoying because, I have a pleasant life and that, but I don't, anyway, yeah. I think the book is probably the best way, or depending on how wealthy they are, get me to come on over and give a keynote talk for your company or something. Yeah, I'd love to. And we'll go climbing.
Awesome. Sounds good. Okay. And I also will say this here is that as a way of expressing my gratitude to you for making the time and sharing of your experience and your wisdom, I've gone on kiva.org and I've made a $100 microloan on your behalf to a female entrepreneur in Thailand named Mito, who will use this money to help buy organic hens and organic feed so she can improve the quality of her own life, her family's life, people in her community. So just want to say thank you that way.
Thank you. That's nice. Cup and cup.
Yeah.
Hey, just a thought is I'm doing some work with something called the TTC, the Transformational Travel Council, and with a firm called, I think it's Explorer X or something. And I am going to be running like a 10-day vacation in Utah, I think, next spring. And I'm also talking to a travel company called Intrepid, who are kind of global, Australia-based, but around the world. And I'm going to be doing something with them as well. That's going to be in Morocco. Those could be things, but they're being worked out at the moment. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, if it's worthwhile to you to share the details of those with me, I would be glad to share them with people on my list and in my community.
Thanks.
And if space allows, I might even come. It sounds awesome.
All right.
Sounds awesome.
Yeah, that would be fun.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so really, I know we're a little longer than I'd intended, and I do want to go ahead and wrap up soon. But seeing as how we're here together, I want to invite you to share something with people listening who, as I said at the outset, they want to do what you're doing. They want to take their ideas, they want to organize them, put them between two covers, share them with others in ways that make a difference and that is not draining, but is in fact enjoyable and energizing. So I don't know exactly what my question is, except for maybe what advice, I'm not big on advice, but what would you say to somebody who's on this journey but hasn't arrived yet?
As a basic starting point, understanding the structure of story. So if someone wants to be an author, do you mean like a nonfiction or a writer of some sort?
Yeah, fiction, nonfiction, they want to write, they want people to read it.
All right. So
and they want to enjoy the process.
Yeah. I mean, the first thing is to realize that you're not going to make any money. But I don't mean that negatively, but you've got to do it because you love it, because seeing it as a route to money it's most people don't make it. And that, I don't mean this negatively at all, because everybody told me it wouldn't work for me, and yeah, fine. But that doesn't stop people opening restaurants, But, to obviously enjoy it. I think that's really to enjoy I believe this for anything. My wife's becoming an actress at the moment, and what she has to do, I think, is not think she's going to end up necessarily in a big Hollywood feature film. And again, not negatively, that may well happen for her, but enjoying the process, the journey. If you enjoy that, boom, that's happiness anyway. You're doing the right thing. On Writing by Stephen King is gold.
Love that book.
Super book, really easy to get through. Phrases like, you just got to turn up and, so that you should be where the muse will find you rather than think it's just going to come to you. And sometimes it feels like you're shoveling shit from a sitting position. That kind of, and then the two phases, writing with the door closed and the door open, I think it's just pure gold. I love that, whether you're writing, fiction or non-fiction. Kurt Vonnegut's Shape of Stories, I think, is great, which of course I've used in chapter 1 of the book about story. I wouldn't bother with Robert McKee's story book. That's Kurt Vonnegut. And I would say if you're doing non-fiction, there's this book by Anne Lamott called Bird by Bird.
Oh, yeah.
And an American recommended it to me. I'll be honest. It's beautiful, but it's a little bit too pat. It's a bit, it's too good. It's just a bit, I don't know what it is about it that it's nice. I didn't find it that funny, but maybe that's because I'm a Brit. I don't know. But the ones I loved for non-fiction, I read these in the hope that I could become a decent writer. And I'll say it out in case you can't see this. One is called Telling True Stories, which is by or edited by Mark Kramer and Wendy Korn. It's a non-fiction writer's guide from the Neiman Foundation at Harvard. And it's got like Gay Talese in it, who wrote what's supposed to be the best new journalism article of all time, called Frank Sinatra Has a Cold. You can find it online on Esquire, and it's a beautiful piece of work. But it's also got Malcolm Gladwell, of course, and other great, and Tom Wolfe, awesome non-fiction writers. But it's, as you can see, I've got a whole, I don't know if you can see those, notes. Wow. It's fantastic. And then the new journalism, which is it says Conversation with America's Best non-fiction writers on their craft. And that's got It's got Michael Lewis in, who is the greatest. Him and Gladwell and David Simon. His nonfiction is amazing. I found those really powerful for giving me some great direction in terms of how to go about putting together a nonfiction book. I'm lucky in that I come from a sort of literature background, in that my first degree was classics. So I studied Aristotle and, Homer and stuff. But those things, I found those really useful about, finding a writer that you really respect, breaking their code, understanding how they went about it, and then playing with those ideas. And then, of course, and I think it's Michael Lewis who says this in the New Journalism, and then throw that all away, because you write like you, I write like me. As soon as we try and be someone, you can't make the noises on a page that Tom Wolfe does. You can't, and you shouldn't want to. You should make your noises. That. Yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I suspect someone listening they're getting this, but I just want to call it out is, there's a tremendous amount of craft here and diligence and commitment, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, this is not like you just had a whim one day, like, oh, this is what I'm going to do with my life. Like, you have actually made a commitment, you've made an investment, and whatever motivated that, passion or,
desperation.
Whatever. Yeah, inspiration, anything.
Desperation.
Desperation, inspiration, desperation. It's a fine line sometimes.
Yeah, that's
But that you've done that, and that there. Somebody once said there are no shortcuts. Mm. As much as I love to think that spontaneous right action, this effortless, this non-doing, mm-hmm. How much has that been a principle that you've seen, and how much really is the 1% inspiration and 99 perspiration?
This is why flow's so important. And if you look at what's the woman's name who's done that book about grit?
Angela Duckworth.
Yeah, exactly. I've got a real issue with that book and her message, because, and she deals with flow at one point in it, interestingly, but I think flow is the way, not grit. Grit it strikes me, it's kind of like, some of the interviews about, where these people that became great swimmers or something say, did you enjoy your practice? You're like, no, it was really hard. Okay, well, don't do that. And if you look at The Rise of Superman, Stephen Kotler's work on flow, amazing, right? And The Rise of Superman, he absolutely nails what flow is about. But I think you need to have a sense of this thing that you're going towards. Because I've definitely made sacrifices, and not in a bad way, but you make your choices. I want to get good at climbing at the moment, and so I don't do other sports. I've got this friend who does lots of different things. I'm like, well, I have a window. I have sort of probably 3 windows a week to go do some sport, and that works for me. That's okay for me. That's the sport I want to do. With writing, there were times when I would work weekends. I mean, 4 kids. I'd work weekends, or I would, I gave up pot. To be honest with you, years ago, friends would be there and they'd be doing their thing. I'd be like, no, I got to do this stuff. And it's a kind of driving. Yeah, it's finding something you think, I want to do this thing. And the way that I discovered the writing, and the journalism was, I went to night school. And if you're prepared to put your own time into something, if you're prepared to do something for free, then you should try, and you can make some money from it too. That's one of the challenges, right? You need that to work too. But the non-doing, I find writing hard. I'm writing something at the moment for this IDEO firm, and I find it hard, but I also enjoy that. So that's okay. Yeah. That's
great. That totally resonates. I have this theory that writing never really gets easier as a practice. We get better, but the act of putting your butt in a chair and doing the work.
Well, you learn the tricks that enable you to get to more to enjoy it, kind of thing. I mean, definitely my second book was, once you've really lost it, and I remember my first book getting to a point after a sort of night, I used to do like double dates. So I needed to get it done in super quick time. My wife and child went to stay with, she had one child at the time, went to stay with her mother. And I would get up at like 4 a.m. and work through till lunchtime, and then stop, eat, have a sleep, and then get up again and work again. So I could get like 14-hour days in, which is not the best way to do it. But I got like 9 days in and just had this moment where I just couldn't do anything. And it was, I was deeply scared that I'd lost it, that I'd hit writer's block and that was it. And it took me about 3 days and eating a lot of like pizza on the sofa, watching The Office, and then drinking booze to kind of break that. But once I'd broken it, I was like, oh, I can do this. Yeah. And I, now if I get to the point where I just got, my tank is empty, take a break. It's not that clever.
Yeah.
It'll come back.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Oh, that makes sense. Okay. So my last 2 questions. One is time and how to spend it. Did it have a soundtrack? Meaning, did you listen to music while you were writing? And if so, what was it?
I can't listen to music when I write. Because I used to be into hip hop when I was a boy. And the problem is I listen to the words, and I can't have words going through my mind whilst also, I'm into old school hip hop. So, somebody, Big Daddy Kane or something, if he's telling me about his young, gifted and black, I can't be thinking about words. So when I work in a public place, I put Spotify on and put the kind of focus classical music on type stuff. I can't even listen to beats particularly. I need to. It's more hubbub in cafes can work for me, but yeah, sorry.
No, it's more of a curiosity for me, and part of recognizing we all have our own styles and preferences. And when we find something, what I find is, it works for a while, maybe. But in any way, just this experimentation that I think every creative has.
Yeah.
And sometimes inspiration from others. So, okay, so last question. So sometimes my experience is when we're involved in the creative process, there's the inner critic who can be really loud. And what I'm wondering is if you have a phrase or a mantra or a saying or something that's maybe short, it's snappy, that people listening could choose maybe to write on an index card or a Post-it note, put it by the writing space, so that when that inner critic speaks up, they can choose your words instead. Something related to the creative process or that little, you can do it kind of thing. Is there something like that you might offer our listeners?
How about this? Don't worry. It'll all be over soon anyway.
I like it. I like it. Don't worry. It'll all be over soon anyways.
Because it's the unbearable lightness of being. Actually, the incredible liberating aspect of the fact that we're dust. We're a couple of monkeys jumping around on a tiny planet in the furthest reaches of who knows what in the galaxy. There's nothing going on here. And we've been around for seconds. We'll be dead in seconds too. You think about the Earth. It's a big place. And we're on the surface. We're just on the surface every day. And we jump up like flies in these planes to go somewhere to do nothing. Human culture is this blip. It's the fuss of human culture's comedy. And although that, obviously your children, my children, they matter deeply to you and to me, none of it really matters.
Yeah. I'm so present to how that can both be, how, again, this is kind of the framing we choose on the story in the whole, getting out of the hole, that we can choose to take that insight and find despair about it or liberation from it.
Yeah, it's the choice, because despairing is like there's no meaning, so why get out of bed? Existential angst is fine, I get it, but then what are you going to do? And I think this is what drove Nietzsche kind of crazy, isn't it? Right? And he's arguably smarter than, certainly smarter than me. I don't want to say he's smarter than you, but the whole nihilism thing. Well, what are you going to do? Go out with some friends. Go have some fun. Doesn't mean anything anyway.
Yeah. Well, I've really enjoyed this, and I'm really grateful to you for going longer than we'd planned and making time.
Thank you. Really great questions. Really fun.
Despite living in an age where we have more comforts and conveniences than ever before, life isn't working for many people. Whether it's in the developed world, where we're dealing with depression, anxiety, addiction, divorce, jobs we hate, relationships that don't work, or people in the developing world who don't have access to clean water or sanitation or healthcare or education, or who live in conflict zones. There's a lot of people on the planet that life isn't working very well for. If you're one of those people, I invite you to connect with me at goodliving.com. I've created Life's Best Practices Breakthrough Coaching to help you navigate the transitions that we all go through. Whether you've just graduated school, you're going through a divorce, you just got married, you're headed into retirement, you're starting a business, you just lost your job, whatever it is you're facing, I've developed a 36-week course that you go through with me and a community of achievers and seekers who are committed to improving their own lives and the lives of others. So through this online program, you will have the opportunity to go deep into every area of your life, explore life's big questions, create answers for yourself in community, get clarity and accountability. If that's something you're interested to learn about, I invite you to contact me directly at brian@brianmiller.com or by visiting goodliving.com.